Okay, welcome back. This is session 10 of my Pillars of Eternity Lorethrough. Last session, we came down here to the Eothasian temple. We rang the bells in the correct order, first try no less, and we have been examining this area, the Temple of Eothas. Sorry about my chair noises. And this part up here seems to go back up to the top. Maybe I should at least check that out. I'm sure I can go back down if I need to. But there's an area behind this wall over here as well that I don't know how to get to at this point. So I wanted to take a quick look around and see if there was a lever or something that I was missing somewhere. Maybe I can try to up my perception or something like that to make the check. And I think this session, depending how quickly we get out of here, we may end up doing a lot of reading of books. So, because I picked up quite a few in this area that we haven't read yet, so I want to actually go through those, read them, which means that much of this session will be reading in-game texts rather than playing the game and going in combat and all that kind of stuff. All right. Lord Berwinger, cruel ruler from the north, has arrived at the stronghold. He hopes to gain an audience with you concerning a local rebellion. It's a bad visitor that leaves in 7 days, 24 hours.
Of course.
7 days, 24 hours. Sounds like 8 days to me. I wonder, now that I say that, I wonder if days are a little longer or something in Eora. Alright, let's see if I have anything to up my perception. That's savory pie. I can make it and get the +1 perception. But I think the best option here is going to be to just use the resting bonus at the end. Some kind of a secret area. Up on the first level again. As you step over the circle of candles, you hear a rattling clunk from the wall nearby. A door slides open with the grinding rasp of stone. Okay. The candles flicker gently as you approach. There's a gap above the altar, lined with broken glass where a mirror may once have been set in the wall.
The candles are still burning. Not bad for a dead god.
What's all this for?
Redemption. They got this whole rite for when you come of age. They take you by the hand and you descend through the temple with your eyes covered, and that's supposed to be like a wicked life. They don't tell you where you're going. I was sweating like crazy when I did mine.
They take you by the hand, and you descend through the temple with your eyes covered, and that's supposed to be like a wicked life. So this is some kind of... Is it rite of passage for Eothasians, I guess?
They take you to that reflecting pool back there, and you're allowed to look at it so you can face your sins. Then, you come out into this room, and they uncover your eyes again, and everyone's there to greet you. All your friends and family. And it's like you've been redeemed. You light your candle, and it burns with the others. Never had a feeling better than that my whole life.
Adair's eyes linger on the candles, and he seems, for a moment, to be a younger man.
The candles are still burning. Not bad for a dead god.
Now, why would I snuff a candle? I'll leave. Oh. I guess that was my only chance to snuff a candle. Kinda want to do it. Let's reload.
All right, then. The candles are still... Redemption. They take you to that... The candles are still burning.
You reach out to pinch one of the burning wicks. Smoke rises in a thin trail from the candle. Nothing else appears to happen.
They made him strong enough to survive time, but not thoughtlessness, looks like.
Okay, that wasn't much of anything. Unless there's somehow some further repercussions for that.
It was nice to see those candles still burning. I figured they'd have gone out by now.
I feel like we saw a spirit kind of show up really quickly during one of the fights that I had in this place earlier. Yeah. But there's nothing there. This parchment is worn and tattered, and the ink upon it is faded. In this time of hardship, must have just as much faith in ourselves. Was Wharton not? Oh, there he is.
Good day to you.
So I've discovered the temple has been sealed up for years. They must have tunneled in after the food stores. Shouldn't be anything worse than some vermin, though. It's far worse than spiders. Oh, Wharton blinks slowly, brows furrowing with worry. Then, well, I'm in the same spot, friend. I can only beg your help.
Gods keep you.
I'll just tell him I'm still looking. Remember, there are some hidden chambers in this place. Trick sconces, that kind of thing. Best to keep an eye out.
Good day to you.
Yeah, this is hopefully enough. We'll see. Should be a little easier to get down there this time. So I have my +1 perception. Let's see. Oh. Didn't even need the perception to see it. Sorry for wasting your time, everybody. It said there's a screech of metal and a snapping noise as you pull the lever. That's what we were hearing, the spirit that's here. There are faint scratches upon the brickwork by the door hinges. This stand rocks unsteadily on its base. It seems that the mechanism is broken. Some of the gold leaf on these relics is chipped away to reveal the wood beneath. There are tooth marks upon one of the bowls. Okay. Probably gonna find out something awful here. Lost spirit. The light rises from the bones as you approach. You have a moment to register the faintest image of a standing figure, features a blur of mist or smoke before the world tilts. It is as if you have stepped sideways and into a new life. You are racing down a flight of stairs, following a weaving circle of torchlight. Your own panting breaths are loud in your ears. Panic and your robes alike foul your steps, and you nearly stumble before a hand reaches out to grip your arm and steady you. A fellow acolyte who smiles encouragement as you reach the bottom. You run around and past the shallow reflection pool that marks the lowest point of the temple, following the dark shapes of the older priests as they lead the way towards the narrow hall that leads to the vault. You pass one of the torchbearers as you go. It seems like maybe it was this young person going through that rite of passage that Adair was talking about before. The harsh illumination of the flames reveals a familiar face. For a moment, your awareness spans time and identity, and you think Wharton has joined you, here at the bottom of the temple. In the memory, he glances at you for a moment and then looks past at someone else. "I'll come back once they're gone," he's saying. You're being pressed along by the crowd and his words are growing faint. "Just keep quiet, we can't take any chances." Inside the vault, golden relics gleam like welcoming stars. The memory twists, drawing you loose from one moment and plunging you into another like a flung doll. There is only darkness around you now. You think yourself blinded until the knowledge settles into you like a cloak. The candles have all burnt away. You know now, too, with a sick certainty, that nobody is coming. There is a cracking noise somewhere to your left, a wet, slurping gurgle and a ragged sob. You cannot see, and so you cannot know which brother or sister has fallen, and which digs after what water a body may provide. You hear in the faint murmuring to your right the familiar cadence of prayer, but you no longer recognize the words. You are too tired to do harm. The thirst is like fire within you. Your tongue is thick in your throat, and every breath is a struggle that leaches strength from you. There is a light, they said, at the end of every bout of darkness, but this one does not end. The spirit releases you, and you come back to yourself in pieces. Your vision clears, and the vault around you is revealed once more, cast in muted hues by the sickly illumination of the soul drifting like fading fog. Fear wafts off the spirit in waves, fraying at your own emotions. "I'm sorry. I hope you find some peace in the next life." The spirit seems to withdraw into itself. You sense less of its fear and confusion as it recedes, but the soul lingers still. "How many times I see you staring off at nothing doesn't get less weird." So I want to take a look exactly what happened to this spirit here. So they were betrayed, and I'm guessing by Wharton. Memory twists, drawing you loose. There's a cracking noise somewhere to your left, a wet slurping gurgle and a ragged sob. You cannot see, and so you cannot know which brother or sister has fallen. It's thick in your throat. Yeah, it's kind of difficult to tell exactly what happens here. It seems like this person was blinded when whatever happened. gather the remains. The lost spirit. You spend a few moments gathering up what you can find of the bones and priests. It proves a heavy and gruesome burden, but you manage to recover them all. So now I have to return to Wharton. A spirit appeared to me within a vault and showed me a vision of what happened in the temple many years ago and what part Wharton played in it. Confronting him may provide me with some measure of the whole truth.
I can do that. That's settled.
We have Gaun's share, a unique flail. A lesser-known aspect of the god Eothas, Gaun represents the cyclic nature of the life in the seasons, and is often portrayed as a farmer wielding a scythe. He enjoys popularity among more rural followers of Eothas, who are drawn to his varying identities as provider, shepherd of the dead, and defender against injustice. Gaun's share is said to have been crafted by a distraught Deerwooden smith after the destruction of his home by a Glenfathan raiding party. Upon arriving at a neighboring settlement, the smith immediately set about his work, intending to craft a weapon suited to righting the wrongs done to this village. Toiling over several weeks, he was able to fashion a heavy flail covered in small, sickle-shaped blades, with which he was determined to send any returning invaders into the afterlife. So it seems like a flail, but it's got like curved blades like a scythe on it. So it kind of sounds pretty nasty. And Gaun here is another way to refer to the god Eothas. It's another name for him. He seems a little bit darker than the way most Eothasians follow Eothas. Not to say that he's bad or anything like that, but Gaun seems to focus on, right here it says, he enjoys popularity among more rural followers of Eothas who are drawn to his varying identities as provider, shepherd of the dead, and defender against justice. So it's more of the death aspect of Eothas that they follow when they're following Gaun. And we are going to actually meet one of these Dawn Stars in the second game. So there's going to be a lot more about Gaun in that game. But I did want to make sure I mentioned it here as well. I also got a pry bar. I don't think anyone uses flails. Maybe I'll look on that some other time. Okay. So let's go confront Wharton. Alright, Wharton, here we go.
Good day to you.
Think I've sorted out the worst of it. Arm's hurting a little less. He hesitates. You were down there a while. Did you find anything? Something you're nervous about? No, of course not. Just never good to linger around these places, that's all. Wharton gives you a searching look. Did you find anything? You lied to me. What? Wharton grins uncertainly. I was clear about everything. The risk involved. Is that what you mean? I did say there'd be spiders. And I'll pay you, of course, for the trouble. You're very nervous for an honest man. Something weighing on your conscience, maybe. Wharton opens his mouth to protest, but something in your expression stops him. He swallows nervously and looks away. His voice, when he speaks, is small. How did you... That place is full of shadows, spirits of those you killed. That's not... He eyes you fearfully. I didn't kill them. Right up until the end, You don't understand, Wharton says. I tried to help them. I did, every day. Every single day I went to that temple and warned them. I told them that they were playing with fire and Radric wouldn't be patient forever. And every time they'd shrug it off, like I didn't know what I was talking about, like it wasn't costing me, coming in to try and help them. I could have been arrested right alongside them. So let's see. I'm going to use this intellect one right here. You worked for Radric. Wharton gives a bleak laugh. Yes, but not anymore. It's been a long time since I held a blade, he hesitates. I knew it was coming. It was their own damn stupidity that kept them in there. I couldn't understand. Every warning I gave they ignored. The Rectrix. She said they'd be reborn anyhow, so it didn't matter, he grimaces. So she got what she wanted. Her martyrdom. Radric ordered us to round them up, lock them in the cells. I convinced them to hide, at least. They have that vault full of old relics, gold and such. I thought they could hide in there, and once the guards left, they'd have something to sell for passage out of the Deerwood, back to Edir. And when I told the men that the priests had already gone, they ordered the temple sealed. I couldn't get in again. Wharton shakes his head. There's nothing I could do. Edir's eyes are wide, disbelieving. Nothing you could do but tell someone, get the town together, organize a rescue. I'd have dug them out with my own hands if I'd have known. There were some of the last decent folk left in this hole. Now all we got left is people like you. So it seems like what happened here, Wharton was working for Radric, trying to get the Eothasian priests out of here. And when they went to attack, he convinced them to hide. But they basically... I hope you didn't hear that on the mic. But they basically got buried alive when everything got closed off. I'm going to ask him, why did you send me down there? Because if Lord Radric means to have the temple cleared, says Wharton, they would have found the bones eventually. They know I lied to them when I said the priests left and I'd hang. Wharton's shoulders sag. I don't know if Radric would have killed them. Maybe they'd be languishing in cells now. Maybe they'd be off somewhere in the Empire and I'd have a night's peace. I told you the way of it, Wharton says, his voice rough. I told you what happened. Guess it's your turn now to make a decision. I'm not comfortable with being judge, jury, and executioner here. Maybe I'll say it's not too late to make amends. Wharton lets out the breath he was holding. I'm not sure that's true. It's been years now. What am I supposed to do? Bury their bones. Try to lead a better life than you have so far. Wharton looks at the remains. He runs a hand through his hair, letting out another ragged breath. I can do that. I can. I'll lay them to rest. Try and do right by them somehow. Thank you, truly, for what you've done. Give me a second chance. I'll put it to good use. Okay, quest completed. Buried secrets. So about my choice there, letting him live, it seems like he did something pretty awful, but he did it under Radric's orders, and I am just not comfortable taking out my anger on someone who was following the orders of a despot. They are put in a position where they have to make the choice between doing something awful or having something awful to them if they find out that they were a traitor, they betrayed him or something like that, and he didn't follow his orders. I don't want to excuse his actions, but I also don't want to say that he's worthy of execution, because I'm going to blame Radric for that, and he's going to get his. Did I read this yet? A rising sun and the 3 dawn stars, the symbol of Eothas. Okay, so that is the Temple of Eothas done. So now it's time to read some books here. So let's start with the Deerwood Part 2, The Broken Stone War. We read Part 1 already, about the early colonial history of the Deerwood, where the Edir Empire set up colonists over here, and they found these riches in the Ingwithan ruins there, which the Glenfathans, the inhabitants, were not happy with. So there was a lot of smaller conflicts when they got there. And so the Adirans set up a military outpost in Deerford, which is actually on the map here. We can visit it next. We haven't visited Deerford yet, but we can visit it, and we'll be doing that soon, probably. And yeah, they set up a military outpost, and they enslaved some of the Glenfathans too, and which obviously made things a lot worse. And that was the early colonial history. So let's read the second part of the Deerwood, Part 2, The Broken Stone War. Oh, I actually have two of them. I haven't read that yet. In 2626 AI, a group of farmers, while clearing farmland for planting, accidentally knocked down one of the ancient Adra menhirs on their land. This innocent act drew the ire of the native population and started what would become known as the Broken Stone War. When it was finally over, several thousand colonists had been killed, as well as hundreds of the Glenfathans. Even though the war was technically over, the Glenfathans escalated their attacks on settlers over the next 2 years using vicious tactics that left many colonists, several military figures, an earl, and 6 thanes dead. So this is what the spirits at Cadnua were actually talking about too. This was one of the wars that the woman's husband and the child's father died in this Broken Stone War. Unable to stop the Glenfathan attacks, the earls elected Earl Adrang Hadret to the position of Grave. While respected and known to be the master of military tactics, he was tasked with dealing with the Glenfathan threat. Adrang fought with the Glenfathans, led by an Orland named Regid, for the next 2 years. Neither side can gain the upper hand on the other, resulting in a tense stalemate between the two groups. Because of this stalemate, the hostilities slowly died off, and in 2631, which is 5 years later, the Deerwooden people signed a treaty with the Glenfathans. Regid would step down, the Glenfathans would stop their attacks altogether, and the Deerwooden people would leave the ruins alone. This treaty angered the nobility in Edair, as it brought to a halt the supply of artifacts. Adrang also tried to get the practice of slavery outlawed, but this was not successful. Because of this, the peace between Deerwood and Erglonfath is uneasy and tumultuous. Small patches of rural violence still cropped up, but were easily dealt with, as neither side wanted another war. So this new ruler, Adrang Hadret, created some kind of truce pact with the Glenfathans, which made the Fairkoning of Edair upset because they weren't getting the artifacts from the Glenfathan ruins. And I think because this war is so important, I think it would be worthwhile to actually read some from the guidebook about that. Okay, so this is from the guidebook here, and I'm going to read the section, the heading of this section too, that's labeled "Conflicts in Deerwood and Erglonfath." Nationalistic Glenfathans often say that the eastern continent has been at war ever since the first eastern foreigners spotted land. When distant powers were conquered or pacified, Deerwood found a new conflict in its neighbors, its people, and even its gods. A fable passed among the Glenfathans during the early colonization implied that the Adirans had killed all of their own people across the sea and sought other shores to make sport of the living. So to the Glenfathans, the Adirans have signaled the beginning of conflict, basically. And they see the Adirans as these kind of bloodthirsty people that killed all their own people, came across here to kill the Glenfathans and steal the Angwithan artifacts in the ruins. And this is the section labeled The Broken Stone War, which is what we just read the book about. But there's a lot more in the guide about the Broken Stone War than there is in this book that we picked up. It says, 3 years after the initial settlement of the Deerwood, farmers clearing a field for crops unknowingly destroyed a pillar of living Adra that obstructed their path. So we already knew that from this book, that this was the start of the war, was a farmer who unknowingly destroyed a pillar of living Adra. That evening, Glenfathan raiders stormed the settlement and demanded the heads of the desecrators. A mixture of linguistic and cultural misunderstandings escalated the encounter far beyond its intended threat. Knowing nothing of Adra's significance, the colony expressed ignorance over the perceived crime. Glenfathans took this to mean that the colony was protecting the guilty, supporting their desecration, or possibly both. So there is a lot of misunderstanding that's going on here. First of all, the farmer who destroyed the pillar, and then when they met, they just didn't kind of understand each other, which made the conflict become much worse than anybody had actually intended it to be. A reactionary slaughter broke out that lasted for several days. After the initial melee dispersed, Glenfathans waylaid the colonists traveling between settlements and either hung them from trees or butchered them in Adra circles. Sometimes they left the victims they let the victims decide their means of execution. Bands of colonists attempted to find or capture natives and bring them to justice, but their enemies were adept at navigating the environment. Most of the Adair lynch mobs fell victim to the same fate as those they sought to avenge. So again, Glenfathans taking out their anger on the colonists here, and it seems like the Adairan colonists are trying to get their revenge, even though they can't. And I do want to remind you that the Glenfathans here see these people as invaders. They see the Adirans as very warlike. So their reaction to this is based on what they see from the Adirans as invaders, as bloodthirsty. The Glenfathans appointed an Orland military leader named Regid to the status of Galvin, Sparrow, a term for a Glenfathan war chief. Regid specialized in coordinating Glenfathan warriors and striking vital colonists who thought themselves unassailable. The chief's evident cunning forced the Adairan emperor to recognize that his own forces were greener in experience and no match for a decorated warlord. In order to regain the upper hand, he promoted Adrang Hadret, one of his accomplished earls, to the grave of Deerwood. Adrang's objective was to build New Dunrid, a capital city. The emperor worried that laborers and settlers would be especially vulnerable to the attack during its construction. Considering what the Glenfathans already had inferred about the Adairan military tactics, it was the wrong time to put his fighters at such a disadvantage. Adrang had studied Glenfathan combat and used his conclusions to his advantage. He instructed the earls and thanes under his power to engage with the enemy in ways that went against their traditional military teaching. This made Adrang something of a controversial figure during his early rule. In spite of skepticism of his methods, the empire couldn't dispute his results. Perseverance built the city, and Adrang further eased tensions by preventing the plunder of Engwithan ruins. So, two things for Adrang Hadret here. He forbid the plunder of Engwithan ruins, which quelled some of the conflict with the Glenfathans, but he also studied the Glenfathan combat, and because of that, he was able to have an advantage in some of the smaller conflicts while they were building New Dunrid, which we know as Defiance Bay. So this was the first of the conflicts between the Glenfathans and the Adirans, based largely on a misunderstanding, but still it was the Glenfathan natives lashing out at the Adairan invaders. Whether you want to call that imperialism, exploration, whatever it is, the Glenfathans saw them as invaders. And this whole thing is just so reminiscent of just American history and European imperialists in North America, South America, Central America, bringing people over, settling the land, saying that the people who live there currently are somehow like bloodthirsty, uncivilized people that need to be taught their place, basically. And that is exactly what's going on with Adair and the Glenfathan natives here, especially since when we talk about the natives of the United States, at least, and how much they lived with nature, they had an understanding of the land, and the imperialists didn't have that understanding of the land, and they just kind of settled, whereas the natives were able to work with what they had. The imperialists, the colonists, tore things down and put up their own things. So very quite a few parallels with not modern history, quite a few parallels with actual American history. Okay, so that was the part 2 of the Deerwood history. So what do we have next? We picked up Monsters of the Deadfire Archipelago. I think this is more appropriate for the second game, but that's okay. The archipelago winds its way between the Great Eastern Ocean and the Restless Ocean, hundreds of small islands in the midst of water. Few dare brave its treacherous rapids, and fewer still have returned to tell the tale of their adventures through it. Travel between the two oceans is virtually impossible. Great storms hammer any ships foolhardy enough to attempt to navigate. and this alone should be enough to deter anyone from attempting the voyage, as untold ships have gone down, tossed against the rocks. The weather and treacherous rocks are only a precursor to the actual horror of the archipelago, the terrors of the deep. No one knows how many creatures stalk the oceans, waiting for unsuspecting sailors to drift into their waters. But we do know of some. The barbed ravager, a giant shark that is known to ram passing vessels, trying to knock sailors off the deck and smash a hole in the hull. It has tremendous spines protruding from its side and back, that are presumed to be poisonous. The largest sighted barbed ravager, with survivors, was estimated to be almost 30 feet long. Sounds kind of like Jaws there. Winding serpent. Smaller around than a ravager, but potentially longer, the winding serpent attacks in small packs, usually 3 to 8. They have long, sharp heads, somewhat reminiscent of a barracuda. Like the ravager, they repeatedly slam into the side of a ship, hoping to crack a hole in it or knock someone from the deck. They have been known to swim to the depths and shoot up out of the ocean, landing on the deck, coiling and winding their way around, snapping up any crew they can before plunging back into the ocean. There's Leviathan. Imagine the largest whale you have ever seen. The Leviathan is at least 10 times that size. By the time a ship sees a Leviathan, it is already too late. As they rise from the depths, the water around them begins to spin and sink, creating a whirlpool. The Leviathan's body surrounds the hapless vessel, preventing escape, and as it goes down, the enormous mouth opens, pulling all aboard into their watery deaths. Pulpivir. All the creatures you've read about in this book are nothing compared to the pulpivir. Barely the size of a man, what they lack in size and strength they make up for in numbers and terrifying viciousness. Their lower halves are massive tentacles like an octopus or squid, but more numerous. The tentacles are long, black whips with suction cups on the underside and small thorny barbs on the top. The sheer number of tentacles gives them frightening speed when walking on land, pulling themselves forward almost as fast as running a horse. While they vaguely resemble a human form from the waist up, any extended examination proves how wrong their assumption is. Long, stringy black hair falls from the top of their heads to cover a face taken directly from a nightmare. A wide, gaping mouth cuts across the bottom of its head from ear to ear, full of wicked dagger-like teeth. 2 large round eyes are sunken into the head, black as coal, shining with a malevolent fire. A small antenna protrudes from the middle of its forehead, ending in a small nodule that can glow with an eerie blue light. One can imagine a sailor on the deck of his ship at night, looking out across the black water, blood freezing as countless lights appear beneath the surface, rising toward him as the pulpivar swarm upward. Because they seem to be more octopus than man, they can collapse in on themselves, fitting into space as no person should be able to. The smallest crack in a hull, the slightest separation between boards offers them entrance. It is not unknown for them to slaughter an entire crew from hold up to deck by infiltrating the ship from underneath. Fortunately, they do not seem to have spread too far outside of the archipelago, but there may come a day when pulpivir attacks become commonplace. Interesting monsters here from the Deadfire Archipelago, the sea monsters, which first of all, things that live in the sea tend to hold more mystery than land because they can't be seen as often, and you have to really try to figure out what they look like, what they are capable of, and the sea can just be extremely terrifying because of that. So we have the barbed ravager, which again sounds like it's some version of Jaws, just like a giant shark. We have a winding serpent, which is more snake-like, and they attack in packs. We have Leviathan, which is an enormous whale that creates whirlpools just by being there. And then we have the pulpivir, which sound like some kind of twisted mermaid with octopus legs rather than like a fins on their bodies. Pretty cool and terrifying, if you ask me. All right, what's next? The Most Unfortunate Tale of Favia and Bernat, a Valian tragedy. All right, so this looks to be some kind of play. This is a scene. Laia watches Bernat approach Favia's tree, looking for her human form. Laia: behold, now comes the fun, that for which I have waited. His love is forfeit, her love is forfeit, and all I have worked toward shall be fulfilled. He says he knows his love. He says no force in the world could help him from her. But what chance has force against guile? Never will he find his love, for she is no longer his love. The spell cannot be undone except by her death. and by then it will be too late. But wait, he has seen her. Laia steps back to observe. Favia, pray, mortal, why have you come here? These woods are not for your kind. The affairs of men have no place at this tree. Leave, leave ere your welcome lapses. Bernat. Scene, Laia watches Bernat approach Favia's tree. Okay. Bernat, foul creature, where is my love? What have you done with her? Always has this been the station of our encounters. Never before have I seen you. Where is my love? Answer, answer, and my patience lapses. Leave, leave ere your welcome lapses. Answer, answer, and our patience lapses. This is almost like a song. Favia says, Fool, this is my land and this is my tree. Your presence never before has been felt. Again, I say to you, my generosity will not be extended a third time. Laia steps forward. Talk? Discussion? Laia says. I know the way to hurry the conclusion of this tale. Laia takes a breath and extends her throat as if she's yelling. A scream comes from the corpse of trees where the Pugra stands. My love, Bernat says. Bernat steps forward, brandishing his sword. Bernat, prepare yourself, wretch, for not even death can stand between me and my love. I will have her from you, or you will meet your end. Bernat moves towards Favia, who closes to fight. They fight. During the fight, Bernat is grievously injured as he delivers the killing blow to Favia. She falls to the ground. As she dies, the spell on her breaks, transforming her back into her Demelgan form. Favia, Bernat, Bernat, my love, what have you done to me? What was it I said? What was it I did? Has our love soured in your heart? Bernat, Favia, my love, my life, what foul sorcery has befallen you? How have you come to be laid low by my hand? Fie, fie to the gods for such treachery, fie to all who stand in our way. Favia, fear not, my beloved, for now we are together, and together we will always be. Nothing can keep us apart. But lo, why is it suddenly dark? Where is the sun gone? Where are you? I cannot see you. I will find you. I will... Favia dies. Bernat, a curse upon the fiend who has betrayed me, to hold love in your hand and have it wrenched away. Bernat winces and puts his hand on his shirt. It comes out covered in blood. Bernat, what luck, what chance, tragedy may have yet to fortune. Favia, my love, soon I will rest in your arms. We will lie together as one, forever shall we be side by side. I go now to meet my love. Bereth, I accept your cold embrace. I welcome your company. I beg your mercy. Bernat lies down next to Favia's body. Bernat, I am ready. Bernat dies. Laia steps out of her hiding spot and runs to Bernat's body. Laia, Bernat, you fool, you wretch, how can you leave me? I am alone, I am forgotten, I am cast out. Without your love, how can I continue? Life holds no thrall without your visage upon which I may gaze. What shall I do? But hear my salvation, my answer. Laia picks up Bernat's sword. Laia, his blade, his weapon. I shall be impaled upon him, and he shall cut through me. I will not be denied my love. I will not be denied my love. You will be mine, if not in this life, then in the next. Laia impales herself on the sword. Laia, I come for you, my love, my Bernat. Wait for me, and I will find you. We shall love forever. Laia dies. Kind of like a Romeo and Juliet type play here, I guess. Okay. Just a little world building in that one too, with the Pugra, who are the creatures who kind of live as one with nature. And they aren't human, although they look a little bit human. And it seemed like Bernat here was in love with a Pugra and didn't really know that that was what was happening. All right, next one we have is the Great Western Stag. One day Eothas was sitting on a wall watching a cat play in the sun. A crystal, hung in a nearby tree, had fragmented a sunbeam and scattered small motes of light on the ground. They danced around the car, sliding over him as he frantically batted at them. He spun in place, following one as it rushed past him, and leaped on it, trying to pin it down. Eothas smiled, amused at the animal's tenacity. The cat landed on a spot, placing his paws over it, only to watch it flit away again. Eothas watched the cat's tail twitch and slap on the ground, annoyed that his prey could not be pinned. "Why must you tease him?" a voice said from behind him, accompanied by the crunch of sandals on gravel. I merely bring the dawn, Eothas responded. I don't stoke the hunter's heart. That's your responsibility, isn't it? True, said a second voice, but neither do you quell it. If the hunter could not see his prey, would he still hunt? So philosophical, Hylia, Eothas said, and turned to greet the two gods that approached him. Have you come to debate the parallel between sight and desire? He gestured to the wall, inviting Hylia and Galawain to join him. They sat in silence, watching the cat, who continued to hunt the sun, fruitlessly swatting at another mote and then rolling onto his back. I have created the ultimate prey, Eothas said, finally, breaking the silence. It can be tracked, it can be followed, it can be seen. But it can never be caught. Galawain laughed lightly. You don't agree, Galawain? Eothas asked. While it's true that your creation is elusive, it hardly can be considered the ultimate prey because it can never be caught. He paused, his brow furrowed in thought. If that mode of light had substance, the hunter could subdue it. Otherwise, it's merely a dream, truly a fruitless endeavor. All creatures spend their life chasing fruitless endeavors, said Hylia. It is the way of mortality. Galawain laughed again. I could create a creature, a living creature of flesh and blood that could never be caught. I make your dream a reality. Now it was Eothas's turn to laugh. You propose turning a fruitless dream into a fruitless reality. How is this any better? A life spent in pursuit of an attainable goal exceeds any other. But you just said no one could catch this creature, that this is not attainable. Galawain smiled. Humanity has surprised us before. Indeed, it could surprise us again. I will create a great white stag, and I will set it free in the world. It will have grace, resilience, and tenacity. It will exist solely to be pursued for all its days, and it will never be caught. It will serve to inspire the hunt for generations to come. All those who wish for glory will invoke my name. All those who hear its story will ask for my blessing in finding it. Hylia shook her head, and threw Galawain a bemused look. I do not believe this is possible, so I too make an offer. To the person who catches this stag, and they will catch the stag, I will bestow upon them its grace, resilience, and tenacity. Thrice blessed they will be. They will ask for my blessing on the hunt so they can obtain my boon. Galawain and Hylia took up arguing whose name would be invoked more when the hunt was on. Eothas sighed, a small smile playing at the edges of his mouth. He stood and looked to the sky. The sun had already started to hide itself behind the mountains. The cat, long ago tired of stalking the moats, had fallen asleep beneath the tree. He turned and looked at the other gods, deep in debate, and sighed again. I merely bring the dawn, he repeated as he made his way down the path. It is up to you to see what I reveal. So a small story there. Seems like some kind of a fable, which brings up Eothas, who we have talked about, and Hylia and Galawain, who have been mentioned before, we haven't really talked about. I don't know if now is the right time to go into more detail on either of them. The last one also mentioned Berith, which is another god. So I think at some point in a future session, we're going to have to sit down and read about Galawain, Hylia, and Berith, since we haven't done that yet. Okay, next one we have the Book of Verses. This small volume of verses and psalms is somewhat battered, suggesting it used to be carried on someone's person. The pages are dog-eared and worn, and the gold threads which form the title of the book have begun to fray. The book tends to open to a particular section where someone has marked a verse with a blotch of ink. Eadnung, the bright star, spoke, and her voice was like a clarion cry, calling his soul forth. He knew her for the right hand of the shining god, and was afraid. O wanderer, hear me, she spoke. You are known to us, and your deeds put you far from salvation. And he wept, for he knew his sins lay bare before his great illumination. Then Sargamus spoke. His voice swept forth with heat and force of the bright day's sun. Weep not, for the child of light has forgiveness even for you, if you will embrace him. Harmki knelt before him, then resolved to save himself, and asked what he must do. And Modagung spoke. Her voice was like the songbird's final hymn, bidding farewell to the day's light. What darkness lies within you, you must cast into his light. Your sins will be burned from you until you are newly formed, reborn to his keeping. So spoke Modagung, but Eadnung warned him, saying, You have walked all these years into darkness and must now return. You will find the path like treading fire, and at every step you will be tempted to turn away. But no harm will come to you if you keep your faith. It's an interesting story. I don't really know what to make of it at this point. I'm wondering if these names, Eadnung and Sargamus and Modagong, are all like alternate names for some of the gods in this universe. It seems like they might be, but I really don't know. I'm going to maybe make a note to return to that at some point. See if we can figure out a little bit more about what's going on in this verse here. All right. Last one is the Eothasian prayer. So this just looks like a prayer that any follower of Eothas might say. And the sun shall break through the darkness, the new dawn arriving with rebirth of the day. Rejoice, all ye who dwelleth in the shadow, who are broken and beaten. The winter soon comes to an end. Spring shall rise, bringing light and life to the world. Radiant light, radiant life, and thy soul shall find warmth in its arms. All creatures bask in his glory. The rays of his countenance bathe the world, bringing an end to the night, ushering in the day. Kneel before him, and wonder at his benevolence. Feel the warmth of his radiant presence. If thou art broken, he shall make thee whole. If thou art in darkness, he shall bring thee to the light. If thou art sinful, thou shalt be reborn. If thou art cold, his warmth shall bolster thee. How canst I, so lowly and worn, speak words of proper adulation? Thine eyes, whose gaze sees the sin in me, yet still shows love. Thine eyes, whose grip pulls me out of darkness. Thine ears, listening to my every prayer. Thine heart, bright as the dawn, giving me warmth when I am raw. Eothas, light of the spring, sun of the world, thou givest me light, life, and purpose. If thine heart be black, if thine intention be impure, thy life is forfeit. For he hath seen, he can see, he will see. Nothing is hidden from his glory. His light touches every corner of the world. Nothing is hidden from his sight. If thou doest thy work in the dark, if thou wouldst keep thine actions hidden, thou shalt be burned in the sun of the new dawn. Day comes soon. Prepare for the dawn. Nothing is hidden from his reach. So this seems to be focused on a cycle almost, this Eothasian prayer, that in everything in darkness will eventually be brought to light, that everything winter will become spring, and so on and so forth, death and rebirth. So that's an interesting Eothasian prayer there. And that is all of the books that I wanted to read here. So we have a kind of half and half session here where we explored the Eothasian temple underneath Gilded Vale, found out that Radric wanted to have everybody killed, and Wurtin was supposed to evacuate everybody. That's not the right word. Was supposed to evacuate the temple of people, but actually just kind of buried them under there. It didn't seem like he meant to do that, but that was the result. And then we read a lot. We read about the Broken Stone War, which I think is the most interesting for lore purposes there. But we also read about some of the monsters of the Deadfire Archipelago. We read a play which seemed a little bit like a Romeo and Juliet type thing. We got a conversation between the gods and the Great Western Stag, and we heard some prayers from Eothas, and the Book of Verses I would love to revisit at some point. I wasn't really sure what to make of that one. But yeah, so I'm glad we got to read some of those books. I think they were kind of interesting, either because of... Thanks, Durance. I'll pause it here. Yeah, Durance just kind of wrecked my train of thought there. But yeah, I'm glad we got to read some of those books for both world-building purposes, to give the world some purpose, to personality, but also for lore purposes, to find out about some of the history and everything. So thank you for joining me for session 10, and I hope you join me again for session 11. As always, any kind of engagement is welcome. Comments, likes, subscribes, those kinds of things, and hope to see you soon in session 11. Bye, everybody.